This? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let me just read a few excerpts from the first book, which will perhaps give you a greater sense of why is it that Article 1 of the Indian Constitution uses two different names to refer to the same country. Why do we have both India and Bharat? Which other constitution of any other civilization or any other state uses two different names to refer to itself? What was the thought process? Is it a reflection of diversity or is it a reflection of divergence and confusion? That's the question. Does having two different names translate to having a multiple personality disorder at the state level? And are both these names Bharatiya in that sense? If it's possible, see, it's possible for you to have more than one name to refer to yourself. But is it possible for us to say that both India and Bharat are names that we have given to ourselves, or is one a name given by somebody else and is Bharat a name given by someone else or to ourselves? So let me just refer to this portion from the book, and from here I'll take the topic forward. Those who have got copies of the book, consider this a lecture on Indian constitutional law. Please turn to page number 193 of the book. So here's the interesting part. So the draft constitution was first presented to the Constituent Assembly on the 4th of November 1948, and the debates with respect to the provisions of the Constitution start on the 15th of November 1948. The Constitution is finally adopted on the 26th of November 1949, and then it comes into force on the 26th of January 1951. Usually, you would expect the provision that relates to the naming of the country to be the very first provision that is taken up for discussion, which is Article 1 should have been the very first provision which is taken up for a debate and discussion. So this article is discussed on 4 different dates. Now please pay attention to the dates because this is crucial to what is raging in Bharat. 15th of November 1948 was the first date. 17th of November 1948 is the next date. From there it moves to 17th of September 1949 and 18th of September 1949 when finally the provision was adopted. If you know what's happening in Bharat, the next special session is on 18th of September 2023. Now what does this signal? We can discuss. Now the topic of the discussion with respect to what are the issues that are bound to be discussed as part of the special session, of course, given the person who's at the top, it's always a guessing game. Nobody knows until the last moment. We have no idea what he's up to. Only he knows. Now here's something crucial. So if the discussion was taken up on the 15th of November 1948, why does the discussion spill over to September 1949? Why were they discussing this particular provision for over a year or close to a year? The thing is, the moment this discussion starts, members of the Constituent Assembly decide that naming of this country itself is a sensitive issue, considering that if you choose a name such as Bharat instead of India, does it translate to exclusion of certain identities as part of our national identity? Or to rephrase it, is Bharat as a name inclusive enough considering the diversity of this country? That is the larger question. They realize that if you go down this rabbit's hole, this provision alone would take an entire year. So what they do is what most lawyers do, is to adjourn the matter. So to put it in the language of US lawyers, a continuance was granted. And so the matter was pushed to September 1949, where they said, let's finish all of the provisions, let's finish the discussion on all of the provisions and come back to this, we'll revisit this later. So effectively it comes back to 17th of September 1949. The original draft of the Constitution, or the original draft of Article 1, contained only India. It says India is a union of states. Now, this draft was presented by Dr. Ambedkar, and it was taken up for discussion, and multiple amendments were proposed. Among the amendments were, why do we have India? Why don't we replace it with Bharat and Bharatavarsha? India is a name that perhaps the Greeks have given us, or perhaps the Persians have given us, and perhaps our erstwhile colonial masters referred or used to refer to us. But why should we saddle ourselves with this name? As an independent state and as an independent civilization, why do we choose to be known by the name given to us by our colonial slave master? And that was the question that we put to ourselves. But like most things Indian, we arrive at a compromise. We don't take extreme positions. We try and take the golden mean as the preferred path. And so India, that is Bharat, is ultimately arrived at. But between the original provision and the adoption of India, that is Bharat, a few aspects of Bharatiya history were presented, which I think is important for me to share with the audience. Allow me to read just a few portions, and from there I'll proceed to the topic. So Mr. Lokanath Mishra, I don't know how many people follow actively the politics of India, the politics of Bharat. Old habits, bad habits, what to do, I'm sorry. So, there is currently an MP from Puri, Shri Pinaki Mishra. His father was a member of the Constituent Assembly, Shri Lokanath Mishra, who proposed Bharatavarsha as an alternative to India. And several other members said, let it be, the name of the union shall be Bharat, instead of India is a union of states. As they go along, the discussion gradually moves towards several Puranas and several scriptures where the name Bharat is ultimately traced. And they take the position that notwithstanding the ravages of time and history that have visited this particular land, this sacred land, this ancient land, the name Bharat, the identity of Bharat, and the consciousness of Bharat has continued to exist. In other words, the framers of the Constitution did not see any kind of a break between ancient Bharat and the Republic of Bharat. And they saw this Republic as the successor state to the Bharatiya civilization. And this is extremely crucial. Now, why is this important? The sense of civilizational awareness that the framers of the Constitution had in 1947 and in 1948 and 1949, when the Constitution was being discussed, seems to have been lost with time, so much so that reversion to a name that already exists in Article 1 of the Constitution seems to generate so much of controversy and unnecessary heat in Bharat itself. And this is the crux of the problem, this is the crux of the challenges that we have as of now, and let me now come to the topic. What does Bharat represent and what does this transition from India to Bharat translate to for Bharat as well as for the rest of the world is the primary question that we must address, particularly in the backdrop of the G20 summit that's going on in Delhi. The first thing about Bharat, I think, as a culture, and here I will draw from Ami's point, is not just are we not confrontational, while we are proud of our culture, while we are proud of our contributions to the pool of human thought, as a culture we have always steered clear of any form of shamanism, any form of supremacism. Which is to say, we don't suffer from any kind of superiority complex. We may have been accused, or we could be accused of actually suffering to the contrary sometimes. But we don't suffer from a superiority complex. And this is extremely crucial in a chaotic, volatile world. And this is the message that such an old, ancient, and still relevant civilization has to offer to the rest of the world. Most importantly, as India moves towards Bharat, it's going through a phase of reclamation, a phase of rediscovery, It is trying to remove all the layers of ignorance, all the layers of diffidence, and all layers of imposed diffidence. And once this process picks up steam, the hope is that not only do we move forward, we also take the rest of the world along with us, because Bharat has always believed in sharing its knowledge and its journey with the rest of the world. The idea is not conquest. The idea is collaboration and cooperation. And that message, I don't think, and here I think I can take some sense of pride in saying this, no other country is best placed to deliver this message other than Bharat. And there's a very good reason for this. Despite having suffered slavery, colonization, invasion of the worst possible sort, Bharat has not made vendetta and retribution its primary agenda. Bharat is more interested in reconciliation. Bharat is more interested in moving forward in a very constructive way. And that is possible only if the civilization is based on a bedrock of fundamentally strong spirituality and a fundamental understanding of the human consciousness. This is an extremely crucial message, because Bharat shall rise, and its rise should not and shall not cause concern to anybody else, because Bharat is not interested in a zero-sum game. Bharat does not believe in the rule of the jungle. It does not believe that might is right. This message, Bharat is uniquely placed to deliver and implement in action. Why is this? Because no other civilization, culture, much less any other country, is in a position to pontificate to Bharat on values such as diversity. That is inherent to us. The diversity that we present by way of cultures, by way of languages, by way of civilizations, I don't think there is any other country or any other continent for that matter that comes anywhere close to the Indian subcontinent or the Bharatiya subcontinent. So there is this fantastic book that, of course, Empire loyalist Niall Ferguson has written on what he believes are the strength of the West and what is it that the West has contributed to the pool of human thought. Private property, individual rights, so on and so forth, the standard spiel. But what does Bharat have to offer to the rest of the world? How have we chosen to arrange our thought, our civilization, our institutions, our society and individuals? At the heart of the Bharati experience lies in its understanding of universe and its respect for nature. The organization of society itself represents our deep understanding of nature and how we choose to exist or coexist along with nature. So if I have, let's say, a list of characteristics that define or that animate Bharat as an idea, not just as a state or a society, but as an idea. First is respect for nature or Prakriti. There is no dharma without Prakriti. Where there is no Prakriti, there is no dharma. Which means, as opposed to placing the human being at the top of the food chain, so to speak, which is a sense of arrogance with which humanism operates, you realize that you have a place in this natural order, and that doesn't necessarily mean you're at the top of it. You are here to coexist with non-human beings as well. Therefore, respect for nature and respect for non-humans goes hand in hand with respect for dharma. Second, assuming for a moment you believe that you as a human being know better than other creatures, then let it reflect in your conduct through care for other creatures.
Absolutely.
Second, so first is the relationship between human beings and nature and the place of human beings within nature, not on top of nature. Second is the relationship between individual and society. History has seen societies swing in extremes, where individualism sometimes translates to hyper-individualism, And collective responsibility translates to societal control over individual, which is suffocating and stifling. Bharat has cracked the code of striking a balance between individual dignity and collective responsibility. That's the second aspect. Third, Bharat has also realized that deification of poverty is hugely insensitive, but rampant greed and exploitation of nature in the name of wealth creation is equally destructive because it is penny wise and pound foolish. And therefore, the sense of restraint with which we have defined our economic principles are extremely valuable, and that's something the madam has already alluded to when we speak of respect for nature. Allow me to say this and allow me to use this platform to perhaps push an extremely important message. We can keep fighting till the cows come home on national borders, on several issues, on geopolitics and whatnot. Nature has no patience for any of this. And the day nature chooses to press the hit reset button, we have all had it. Most importantly, I don't think we have to save nature. We have to save nature in the interest of saving ourselves. Because nature has a fantastic way of evolving through cyclical evolutions. The cycle of the Ice Age is perhaps the best possible example, and it's a stark reminder of how nature chooses to operate. It has to create only one massive deluge, and all problems will be addressed. So it is in our hands and it is in our interest to actually take this issue seriously. Sometimes it so happens that a well-meaning message is perhaps hijacked by radical, high-pitched, hyperbolic voices, which has the effect of undermining the legitimacy of the message itself. That seems to be the problem with the current environmental discourse in quite a few places. Nevertheless, regardless of the high-pitched nature of the discussion, let us not forget that the issue is otherwise legitimate, and climate change is extremely crucial, especially for regions such as Hong Kong itself and other low-lying areas. For the one thing that seems to be extremely important about Bharat and its products, for some reason, in the West or in any other part of the world, when you think of an Indian product, most people assume that this is nature friendly. Whether it is Ayurveda, whether it is agriculture, or handicrafts or textiles, so to speak, they somehow have this intuitive belief that if it has come from Bharat, it must be through a nature-friendly process. That seems to be an unsaid, intangible cultural recollection that most people have with respect to products that come from Bharat. So Bharat must also lead the way in terms of perhaps revisiting our principles of agriculture, revisiting our principles of approach to health and whatnot. I am not here to celebrate one particular medicinal system or one particular way of farming at the expense of other. But over the years and over the decades, what has happened is we have sacrificed quality for productivity. We have sacrificed, let's say, integrity for efficiency. These are aspects which we must and we are forced to revisit. And there's no other culture, thanks to its experience with nature, thanks to the thousands of years of civilization that it has existed, which is better placed to push this particular message. Bharat is a microcosmic macro representation of the diversity of the world. No other country could have handled this kind of diversity the way we have. Because diversity in Bharat is not a product of an artificial injection through immigration. It has always existed. It is integral to us. It is organic to our existence. When people come down to Bharat to teach us lessons on diversity in corporate training, I must laugh. Rather, we must actually have ambassadors from Bharat being sent across the world to teach what is diversity and what is acceptance, not tolerance. Tolerance is positively arrogant. Acceptance is humble. Acceptance is real. Tolerance comes from a position of power. Acceptance comes from a position of reality, saying all of us have our place under the sun, under the sky. So I hope that while Bharat deals with its civilizational challenges and comes out with flying colors, in the next 25 years, which is the time cycle that I'm extremely invested in, because that's the time cycle where our demographic dividend is expected to play itself out significantly. It carries the rest of the world along with it. And we witness a paradigm shift in our approach to all spheres of life and in all aspects of life. I just have one request to make, and perhaps this is a request that's coming from a homelander to people who are living outside but still consider themselves Bharatiya. I think that every person who goes out of Bharat is an unpaid ambassador of that civilization. And apart from the fact that we have chosen to live in accordance with the laws of the adopted lands or the adopted motherland, it's equally important that we showcase our civilizational strength by actively contributing to the public life of our adopted motherlands. The first generation of immigrants would have obviously come here to deal with or to perhaps meet with the first of Maslow's needs, which is just livelihood. But the second generation resident is no more an immigrant, at the very least. And they must actively contribute to the issues of the adopted society as much as possible. This does not in any way conflict with your continued allegiance to your country of origin. As Indians, we are comfortable with multiple identities. And in that spirit, I would hope, and with Madam being present here, that someday Bharat also recognizes the concept of multiple nationalities, not just dual nationality. I think it's time for that. Several other countries have done that. Bharat must do it, considering the strength of its diaspora, considering the contributions of its diaspora, and considering the continued interest of the diaspora in the homeland. And finally, one more suggestion, both to the denizens of Hong Kong as well as to the Indian state apparatus. Of all the countries in the world, the one country which has actually done a fabulous job of retaining its relationship with its diaspora, as someone who is a keen student of the state of Israel, I think Israel has done a fabulous job of conducting homeland trips and birthright trips. It's time for Bharat to seriously consider this, because you cannot leave the aspect of the umbilical cord between you and your people to chance. It can't be left to chance. There needs to be a conscious investment in this. And the only way you do that is when you invest in the next generation and take them back to Bharat as much as possible. There should be a delegation, there must be a contingent on a regular basis, and this must be a year-round activity considering the spread and the scale of your diaspora. I'm sure that this is something that we can do, we must do. It is an investment in the future. With this, I will not take further time. I just had these limited thoughts to share. I thank each one of you for having come here and for, as a lawyer would say, a patient hearing. Thank you, Bharat. Jai Bharat. Vande Mataram.